Hybrid in 2026 means endless screens and missed sparks of
Hey,
genius.
I would like to tell you how a tough week that didn't end easy was in fact my best week in over 11 years. This is a story of how I spent my week from the 12th to 17th January 2026. It started first like any other week with new goals and plans awaiting execution and completion, but turned about not aligning with either goals or plans, yet more satisfying and fulfilling than weeks that aligned. This wasn't about being intentional, focused, and ambitious. It was about being spontaneous, reflective, and daring to try new things, endure pains, and challenge personal weakness, fear, and resistance. The background. Like many executive virtual assistants and freelancers today, I have had the belief that I could always get paid when I found a client that fits. But for the past 11 years of being a consultant, getting paid was a false hope, even after contracts were signed with clients. In my field and with my experience, clear contracts were not enough to get you paid. Policies were never complied with after contracts were signed. Hopes were high, but alighting at fulfillment was low. I have had several failed contracts that had nothing to do with my competence, capacity, or sincerity. They had all failed due to external factors that got easily explained away, resulting to renewal of hope without being refreshed by results of success and satisfaction. Needless emphasizing that the previous year was most unfulfilling of all, with its abundance of clients, multitude of signed contracts, yet no reward and no payday. Today, when I see virtual assistant profiles littered all over professional and social networks, I feel sympathy for the future of failure awaiting many who might not have the tenacity to endure to the point of getting used to serial disappointments like me. Those who have high faith in themselves and hope in God will end up losing both when they realize that consulting services like mine are not remotely typical and have no monopoly of failure. Freelance career toes the same path as mine. Virtual assistant specialists fall within the same bracket of freelancers, independent contractors, and consultants. And with so many of them out there, and so few successful founders, senior executives, and agencies willing to pay for their bids, they will have to scramble for scarce opportunities and still fail to secure a pay. Having already been sold a false idea of abundance, dealing with scarcity will be more disorienting for many virtual assistants and freelancers today than it was for me. Because when I started 11 years ago, I was sold the truth that there will be many starving days, weeks, months, and years. And like a good prophecy, there were not many. They were all 11 starving years. So when I said last week was the best week, I am saying it, yes, because it was the week I came face to face with the reality of my personal weakness. I had always known I was too weak for certain kinds of hard work, but that was only theoretical knowledge. Last week, I became practically aware of it. I don't just try. I just didn't try. I fought again and again, but still failed to secure the pay until I told myself I won't go home with nothing. So I decided to fight one last time against my own weakness. And luckily for me, I didn't win, but I didn't die fighting. All I got was broken joints, and I returned home not in tears, but in joy that I was able to survive the fight. This is coming from someone who had never worked on a construction site. This is how it changed for the first time. So the setting. A good friend called. I have officially resumed work and have reported to site. And I said, remember that you should try carry me along. Hope there is something for me to do there. His name is Daddy A. He replied, come and see for yourself. But I think there are jobs you cannot do by yourself, so come along with any good artisan. So he mentioned the specific role, who can do this, and maybe you could assist him. I was okay with that response, so I called around, got 3 I can responses. However, on the set day, no one was ready to show up. I called Daddy A. I am here with the person for the job. However, he is busy right now. I have tried to get him to come with me, but he says he will come later today. It is getting to noon already. I think I will have to come first and wait for him to join me later. Daddy A said in response, it is okay. Follow the description I texted you earlier and start coming. Thanks. I was first disappointed that no good artisan was handy to accompany me. I decided to go alone, and when I arrived, I reported that my master has sent me to come take photos and send so he can assess the nature of the site and know what he needs to come with. The site manager gave me the permission and assigned Daddy A to take me around on site tour and inspection. I got the chance to climb up and down the block of offices in an administrative block still under construction. There were several workers on site at the different wings of the premises. I took pictures and went back to the manager. The manager introduced me to the engineer and I was interviewed briefly regarding my findings. I was not an expert, so I told him I was acting on my master's instructions. He will analyze my photos and give the proper feedback. The engineer accepted and requested to be given a report as soon as the findings are analyzed. I remained with Daddy A. We went to his quarters and I told him plainly, there is so much work here and many people earning an income from their work here. I would like to find any kind of work I could also do. Daddy A said, yes. If you think you can fit in, then stay over on site this week. While waiting for your master's report, you can find a section to work in. That was how a simple visit turned into a week away from home, spent in a construction site for the very first time in my life. The struggles with my weakness. I stayed the night on the first day. At first, I thought I couldn't adapt, but I did. By morning, I was up and ready to bathe, but as it was, there were no facilities yet. Everything would be done and installed when the projects were ready for installations, so I was advised to make do with alternatives available. Morning switched to noon. Others were walking. I was walking around the site, doing nothing particular because I hadn't yet known what I could do, literally. The day was over, others got paid. I only watched and got nothing. All I could boast of were what I said while interacting with people on the site. I got jitters, the doubts, the frights, and the resistance to fighting my own weakness. I didn't try any actual work, so I returned to bed as empty as I had woken up. By this time, I was aware something was being lost. Time. I was watching it roll by without making any money. Worst situation was that I couldn't even do anything that would merit getting paid on a site where people got paid for how much work they did and completed. I didn't even start any, so completing anything was out of the question. No one gets paid for starting anything here. You only get paid for completing what you started in milestones. While on bed, I started reflecting on everything I had just experienced. My racing thoughts kept feeding me with theories of how I was rightly excused from any work until my master comes. Whereas in reality, I didn't have any master. I only made that up to convince the site manager and the engineer that I was sent by some experts to justify my presence. In reality, no one sent me. I was there to push myself. But I couldn't even push myself far enough to lift a pin and put it back down for getting paid. I only pushed my feet around, and no one pays you for walking around looking at others walking. I had learned the lesson from my reflection that hunger was literally self-affliction. In a site where people worked on whatever they could in order to survive, I couldn't work on anything myself. We're talking about survival of the fittest, and I was not fit. I had the intention of working. I was intentional at least. I was equally ambitious. I, however, lacked the willpower. I lacked willpower. By the second morning, I didn't wait for anyone to direct me. I was out of network 2 days now since I arrived on site. So there was no internet life to live, no social media consolations, and no digital nomad explorations. I was cut off the power line on which my consulting career had leaned for 11 years. My smartphone was powered, but without network it was powerless. My life as a consultant had so depended on my phone these 11 years that without it I was lifeless. Being on this site, I realized one thing. Internet life is not real life. Real life endures when internet network is cut off. Telecom network is not air to depend upon. Real air flows freely in thick and remote forests of old, tall, and long-standing trees where no mast is standing. I have just realized that continuous dependence on this unreal infrastructure was weakening the will and resolve to survive without them. That realization prodded my new resolve to do something different. On this second day, I decided to make new friends and find a new master who would be willing to take me in as a new trainee or apprentice, one who would tolerate my nervousness and train a novice like me by assigning me roles that could help me learn to survive with my hands put to work. I approached the first person. I was surprised he asked, "Are you sure about what you are asking for?" Everyone else asked the same question. The first day ended again. I didn't find a master and walked around but did no work. So I got no pay. Others got paid while I only hoped to be accepted to learn something new. That was the second day. The third day was here. This time, I had to go search for network to communicate with those artisans I had earlier invited. Luckily, I found network up at the corner of the uncompleted administrative block. And in fact, that is where I am right now sharing this story. I struggled with the weak signals and managed to communicate with all three respectively. The first two proved to be a disappointment. The last one gave hope, promising to come later same day. I used that information to encourage myself and went about again approaching those who came for work. Luckily again, I convinced one and he accepted me as a learner. All I got assigned was to hold a tape for him. It was the engineer himself. That was not a job I could get paid for. However, it made me feel a little worth for my hands. At the end of the day, my artisan, so-called master, failed to show up and my worth didn't attract any payment. 3 days on roll, no work done, no pay earned. However, something changed. I assisted the engineer, held tape, and even helped mark the new excavation site. I also volunteered to lift some blocks, but none of these attracted any payments. By the end, I climbed up to the section of the uncompleted administrative block where I had found network earlier. I managed to call the third artisan and he promised to come early morning tomorrow. That was hope assuring. Back up on day 4, climbed up to same spot and spent the morning there to maintain network signal. Luckily, the artisan called, asked for clear directions. 3 hours later, he arrived. I now see an opening. I had a real fielder to walk around with and he took measurements, wrote his quotes, and I bargained with him on markup to accommodate my pay. We agreed on 30% markup and now I was sure my week was not wasted. He submitted his quotes and left. Having got this deal sealed, or let's say opened, and also pending administrative approval to give him the contract out of 3 other bidders who had also submitted quotes, I felt relieved. Thought, and though no pay yet and no guarantee of any, I had the option of leaving the site that afternoon, but something in me felt I could still stay, so I decided to stay. In order to make my stay worth it, I approached another expert on site, volunteering to assist him. This time, he saw my resilience and accepted to assign me small tasks. I literally spent the rest of the day following him around as he worked on site. I waited on him to say, do this, bring that, or pick this up. That was me, a servant to a willing master. By the end of the day, he said something to me. You seem determined to work. I will teach you the ethics of my job, and we start from there. We ended up exchanging phone numbers. The day ended. I was happy that I broke the jinx. I got a deal open and got a trainer say yes to me. I went to bed without any pay as other days, yet I felt fulfilled how the day went. On the 5th day, the first person I spoke with was my new master on site. He told me he has thought over my attitude and decided he would officially take me in on a year's training. He asked me a lot of questions about myself and offered a lot of valuable insight about the areas I was to be trained in. He cut through all the advice and handed me a cost for my training. I accepted to take the deal and promised to make payments. He told me also that he would be leaving site today and would call me when and where to meet up with him to commence my training. My training would be 100% practical. I will learn by following him to work across the country. I would observe him closely, ask questions, and learn practical skills by doing whatever he assigns me. In all these, I was to see myself as just a learner and not a worker. Hence, expect no pay in return for my work. I accepted this, not because I was desperate to learn, but because I had learned to be useful to others, not just myself. This was the start of a year of adventure. I would travel and learn on the job, not for pay, but for experience and skill. He left the site in the afternoon of the 5th day, but again I stayed back. I was feeling more like a worker at this time. No job offer, no working contract, but I felt I was called to work from within my spirit. Yes, my spirit was willing, but my body, the flesh, was still weak. Since I was still on site, I decided to try something better today. I was determined to get paid for real work today. So I told the manager that I would like to work with someone who had just assigned. Yes, who he had just assigned to do a certain job. I made it clear that I would do my best, even though it was my first experience doing such work ever in my life. The manager was pleased with my request, not because he believed in my abilities, but because there was shortage of workers. It was weekend already and many workers were already returning home to their families. They had saved enough money for the weekend from the site, but I had saved or earned nothing. So since I had been available all week and have got nothing, the manager saw me as an asset, not because I was qualified, but because there was real need. Work needed to be done, and someone needed to get it done. The kind of work to be done takes two to get done, and many of those available had no pair to work with today. This was my opportunity. I found out by the time I was approved for the work that having the will to work was not enough. Having the physical strength for it was more important. This work tore at me. I gave up trying just as soon as I started trying. My peer who had accepted to work with me was my only motivation. He was doing the work effortlessly. I was only moving at a slow pace. The ratio of my work to his was 1:50. Yet by the end of the day, I was paid equally with him. I was paid because the work was done and the work was completed, not because I was good for the work. I was paid because I didn't just show up where showing up was not enough. And I didn't just make an effort where effort was not good enough. I was paid because I continued until the end, even when I felt I couldn't. Today, I dared myself. I fought against my own weakness, and I finished strong. Even though my weakness didn't disappear, this day was my icebreaker. I got paid, something I couldn't achieve in all 11 years of consulting. I got paid not enough to enrich me, but enough to encourage me to try again. I went to bed satisfied and feeling fulfilled than I ever have been in 11 years. By evening, my new pair was happy with me. He took me out for a leisure tour. I visited his home, spent the evening with him, and later that night I returned back to site for sleep. I slept accomplished. I knew something had changed, and that was me. I could now see my time being valued based on work I did that challenged every fiber of inadequacy in me. On day 6, the site was emptier, but I was still around because I wanted to complete the week on site. Once again, there was need for workers, but not enough workers on site. Those who had job to continue came, but those to assist them didn't come, and I was still eager and willing to work. again. I told the manager I was willing to work with someone who had arrived earlier. He granted me the second opportunity to work on day 6. I approached my new pair. He asked me the question others asked 3 days ago. I responded, this time with more than a yes. I said, I will try my best. Hopefully I don't die trying, but actually get it done. He was pleased. He said, go change into your work gear. I felt commissioned. Today I was a legitimate workman. I got geared up fully for an early start. However, appearing fully geared up is not enough to get the work done. Being able to do the work was more important. My will was put to the test again. I had a residue of courage from my yesterday's work. I started. I was harder, and it was harder than I imagined. I couldn't at first. I felt imprisoned by my will. I was willing but unable. What could I do? I decided to do it anyway, calling myself a prisoner without a choice, just to challenge the last weakness in me to stop resisting. Luckily for me, I beat the weakness. I started the work. The day started moving. While on the work, I was getting cheered by Daddy A saying, "You have become a workman today." I was pushing and pulling up and down, climbing up and going down, standing and sitting, carrying and balancing, walking to and fro. But this time, each step was counting as work, not idle work. I was talking as well, but this time each word was a response to or a question on the task being performed, not idle talk. I kept going. The work kept going with me. I broke down again and again, but when the next call came to stand up, I obeyed, stood up, never saying no, and obeying the call of duty, not the voice saying it is unnecessary within me. I worked and worked, and I knew I couldn't take it anymore, so I exhaled and made it loud. The manager heard my voice and granted me time out. That time out was the rest I needed. I got off working gears, washed, ate, and slept. The next call I heard was, "Come out, we are locking up and leaving for weekend." It was Daddy A. He was with the manager. Everyone else has left. I too was up and ready. We all walked out, and at this time I knew I was not a failure. I rested when I deserved it. I woke up when it was necessary, and I walked away not to quit, but to return home and hopefully return to site next week. I have been approved for work even where I didn't fit, and that is the best part of my story. I didn't just show up at work. I made it work for me to get paid. I got paid twice, 2 days out of 6. I didn't leave with much, but I left satisfied. So this is my story, and like I said, I was hoping I will also get back to site on the next week. And here I am on site. I am right here on site, yes. So I'm sharing this story right back on site when I have made it back to site. And today being the, let's say, the first day of the week, okay, I came back to site. I had to fight my weakness. I was not willing to come, to be honest with you. I wasn't willing to come at all. So, but something made me come. I saw myself getting drowned in my own thoughts of not being ready for another toilsome and taxing week. But when I saw the time going by, it was almost noon. I decided I was going to leave. And that decision took me out of the house. I went, packed my bags, and left. Yes, so I saw myself on site. That was late noon, I think around 3 p.m. And look at me. I got to site. I just quickly changed out of my travel clothes and wore something fit for work. And I ran to Daddy A again, said, see, I want to work, take me to wherever I can fit in right now. And Daddy A rushed, took me to site where I could find work, and look at me. So that was the story. Like I said, I was back to site and I got the work for the first day of the new week. And let me tell you, today's work was not just like the previous day, the previous week. Yes, I did the task I was assigned. Like, I went up and down, let me say a total of 115 times, climbing up and down within 3 hours, a total of 115 times. So this was what I was paid for, because I didn't climb with nothing. I climbed carrying what I was asked to carry, and I carried up to the number, which means I completed the job. And look at me, a job I've never done before. I finally found the courage and the inner strength to get it done. So if I can do this, you can do anything. But that's not the point about my story. The point about my story is that I am making progress in 2026, and this is coming from the vision of PSL Cowork Network. Remember, we are challenging ourselves in this new year, okay, not to stick with what doesn't work, but to make anything work for us, and challenging ourselves to walk in the footpath of our fears. So the same thing you fear to do are the things you should challenge yourself to do. And if I, the founder of PSL Cowork Network, I am taking this same challenge of what I've never done before. If you fear to work with me in PSL, then you have to work with me. All right. So this is what I am doing. I am building this luxury lifestyle brand with 720 elite stakeholders, and you can be one of them. It is still open. We have a lot of hubs to build. We have a lot of hubs to open. I have done the part required for January, so I now have time. Imagine I completed the challenge for January, which was to open 3 hubs. I successfully opened 3 hubs. You see that, right? And I opened it within the first week of January. So look at, within this 2 more weeks before January rolls out, I am using it to challenge myself to do what I've never done before. So, and I want you to also do the same while trying to work with me in PSL Cowork Network. This podcast, I am recording it to challenge you to cooperate with me. The vision is so elaborate and every detail has been captured already. I just want you to be part of what I am doing, what I'm building. And let's see how it turns around our finances for sustainable income auto diversification. Okay, so now we do not just want to earn sustainably, we also want to diversify automatically, okay, or with an automation. And that is what the PSL Cowork Hub is about. PSL Cowork Hubs. We are opening multiple hubs where stakeholders can have stakes in. Okay, it begins with your first stake. And how do you get your first stake? You must get a seat reservation or booking, okay, for the oncoming PSL Elite, okay, Global Fiesta, yes, or PSL Luxury Lifestyle Global Fiesta, coming on the 25th of December 2026. So to show that you are serious about being a stakeholder, you should be the first to have your slot. And we are having the elite slot, okay, for only $200. So you can book this slot and become a stakeholder. Once you have got this slot, you now have okay, a locked position, because we are not going to have more than 720 stakeholders, which also means that if you delay and we have this slot filled up, you will ask for an opportunity to open another, and we will not. Why? Because just like the era when we had cryptocurrency launches, okay, like Bitcoin launched, okay, and you know that there is a limited supply so that the coin can grow, like have value over time. So scarcity creating higher value, right? People appreciating it. Look at where Bitcoin is right now. I remember back in 2016, Bitcoin was nowhere near $8,000. But see, Bitcoin is now hovering above $80,000. How do you see that? That is because there was a peg on the total supply of Bitcoin. So I'm not going into that cryptocurrency thing, okay? But I'm talking about why we are limiting the number of stakeholders to only 720 is to create that same value for the 720 stakeholders as the pilots of the PSL Cowork Network. Now, this is so that as we expand, the value of your stake in each hub becomes more valuable. So from how it starts to what it could become, the potential is huge, and you can only get in early or you miss out completely. So that is why this January is the best time to come in. If you think you can plan later, maybe you don't have the funds now, you have to first secure your slot. If you secure your slot, even if you've not got any stake in any hub yet, you already have an opening open for you. So fill it as often, okay, as you can. Like weekly, we have opening per hub for $200. That's the benchmark. You can do up to 36 slots per week so that you can automatically diversify in more weekly openings. Okay, so every week we have new openings where you add to your stake. So this will continue down till the global fiesta. So then we calculate the total number of stakes you are holding in all PSL hubs open. And remember, your stakes are encouraging us to open more hubs. The more hubs we open, the more we have people who are ready to work from our co-work hubs. You see that, right? And from each co-work hub, we generate revenue and we share a percentage of it with all our stakeholders. Since we have a fixed amount of our stakeholders, we share 10% of our equity from or revenue from the hubs. So we have hub generated revenue that we share 10% with all stakeholders. That is now regardless of what number of stake you have. Just because you are a stakeholder, you have that access to our hub generated revenue. But the one that is particular to your own stake is different. That is based on the number of stakes you have in the hubs. Okay, you earn 20% per month. That is returns on stake. Okay, 20% per month returns on stake. And as far as you have already had that stake, you keep earning 20% per month. That becomes a, what do we call it now? It compounds, right? So your 20% keeps adding up till the global fiesta. So that is the one that is based on your stake. So, but without your stakes, when you already have your slot as a stakeholder locked, okay, you earn 10%. That is shared revenue. 10% shared among the total number of stakeholders, which are not going to exceed 720. And this is where it becomes more valuable. Remember, in the first year, we might be running with only 36 hubs, right? 10% might not be that much. But as the years advance, as we open more hubs, our 10% becomes more valuable. And you still continue to earn that same value. Not in the amount of earlier value, okay? As the value appreciates with more hubs, 10% becomes more valuable and we share it with all our stakeholders. Remember, the number is only 720 elite stakeholders. So if you miss this opportunity to be among 720, you have missed out. So see how interesting it is for me that I have to let you know what I am going, okay, into, so that you become a part of it. This is not just about money drive. No, this is not because we want to make money. This is because we want to impact society in a novel way. So something that has not been there before. And if you are one of the stakeholders, you will join us in our meetup so you see in all the ways we are impacting society with the PSL Luxury Lifestyle brand. So what are you waiting for? I have been talking right now for about 39 minutes, right? So I want to keep this, I want to stop it at 40 minutes. So I don't want you to waste time again deciding whether or not to become a PSL Luxury Lifestyle Elite stakeholder. Take the decision right now. Okay? So go get to your stakeholder slot at https://power40streetfunding.systeme.io/PSL. So that is what is on the screen. right now and become a stakeholder in the PSL Cowork Hub expansion for the years to come. Enjoy all the benefits and let's grow together.
ps://power40streetfunding.systema.io/PSL